Senator, thank you again for coming on the program. It's great talking to you.
Well, listen, I enjoy the good work your organization does for constitutional law in our country.
Well, we appreciate that. So I have to ask, what's your take on the third round of House Oversight Committee hearings that concluded on Tuesday?
Well, first of all, you learn that people that are in ATF who know that something's going on and probably discussing it with people in Washington, they never got any information. And they told how embarrassed they were about it, but it shows you that people in Washington that thought of this great scheme that I call a cowboy mentality, that they didn't want to share it with anybody, which probably tells me that everybody knew it was kind of a big gamble, as it turned out to be a big gamble. The second thing we learned is that the agent in charge in Phoenix still says that they didn't know that guns were going across the border. Well, if they didn't know guns were going across the border, and yet they knew the purpose of Fast and Furious was to get guns across the border, then you wonder, I think it speaks to how not well thought out the program was in the first place.
Absolutely.
And Senator, I think you're so right, because when you listen to ATF's Bill Newell, nothing added up that he talked about. And I really thought that Congressman Issa summed it up pretty darn well when he said that he called ATF's Bill Newell's a paid non-answer. And he looked right at him and he said, are the other agents lying or are you lying?
Well, that's for sure. And obviously, we know enough about this to know that Newell was not telling the truth.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of talk right now about this email that Bill Newell was asked about, that he had sent to the National Security Staffer Kevin O'Reilly at the White House last September. And the email began, I'm sure you know, with the words, "You didn't get this from me." A lot of people say this is the first link we have to the White House and Fast and Furious. What can you tell us that you know about this email?
Well, not much more than what the email itself says, but it does give us another point of contact to follow up with other questions with the justice, and if it takes us to the White House, but it just begs more questions, and then begs for answers that we ought to get to our question.
Absolutely. Senator, you go back and you listen to some of what the president was saying in April, May of 2009, Town Hall magazine had a clip yesterday that they found from the president talking about the need for a semi-auto ban, how he had talked to Attorney General Eric Holder, this is again in April of 2009, about the need to look at what we were doing on the border in terms of our gun trafficking. Clearly this was a priority in mid-2009, and by fall of 2009, Fast and Furious is in full swing in Phoenix, Arizona. Is that another link in the chain as well?
Well, it is, but it gets you into an area where I don't have much facts to back up the proposition that this was a conspiracy to get more gun control. That could be a part of it, but that's not something that I feel confident of saying I agree with until I get more information.
Sure.
But if that comes out, then we know that the whole thing was a conspiracy, anti-gun.
Yeah, and Congressman Issa is talking about how he's going to try. He's not optimistic, but he wants to get the White House staffer Kevin O'Reilly to testify before the House Oversight Committee. What do you think the odds are that somebody from the White House is going to come up to testify?
Well, if that person is a confidential person with the president, you can't subpoena them.
Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. You've gotten so much that over the past couple of hearings, and you have such a conflict of testimony when you listen to what Newell was talking about, sitting right beside these agents and the attaché to Mexico, who said there is no way that guns weren't let across this border, that we weren't allowed to do what we were taught to do. How do you get this to the next step where you can get what you need?
Well, all all I can tell you is the more we dig, the more information we get, and the more follow-up letters we have and questions. We got back a multi-page letter that we had sent recently to the Justice Department, and much to their deal that we had as a result of our hold on the Deputy Attorney General and the agreement we had to release that hold, they still aren't carrying out their end of the bargain, so you write other letters and tell them how they aren't living up to their commitment to us to be totally transparent with us.
So they're going back on their deal?
Well, from the standpoint of incomplete answers or misleading answers, the answer is yes.
You know, it was interesting because Agent Dobbins, he was asked about what he thought of Tuesday's hearings. And he said, and I'm quoting him, he says, "These guys are counterfeit leaders. They're counterfeit executives. Most Americans, after what they heard, would not trust Bill Newell and Bill McMahon, who also was from, the ATF up there, to mow their grass, let alone let them handle this kind of investigation." That is a pretty sad commentary that Americans can no longer trust or have confidence in the criminal justice system. Your thoughts on that?
Well, my thought on that is this: if they're either lying as you say, or they're tools of people within the justice and part of a cover-up to make sure that somebody's protected higher up.
You know, some of the names were that we've already heard, as you mentioned, the Deputy Attorney General James Cole, Assistant Attorney General Lanny Brewer. I mean, these are high-level political appointees within the Justice Department. And now, you know, we heard Bill Newell also say that there were other agencies that were full partners in Fast and Furious.
Now, we dug that out. At least the FBI and the drug enforcement people were involved.
So this isn't an ATF scandal. This is a DOJ scandal. This is an administration scandal.
Yeah, and we're still asking the same questions we asked with the first letter on January the 27th. Who knew what and when did they know it?
Yeah. You know, and you've got Representatives Maloney and you've got Cummings and Norton up there still trying to make this, you know, a case for more gun laws, you know, asking the agents. And there was one ATF agent, I think his name was Wall, that he made clear. He said, "I don't believe we need another toothless law. What we need is vigorous enforcement and prosecution of those that would traffic in firearms, a policy of no tolerance, a change in sentencing guidelines." What is it going to take under this administration to make that happen?
When you're involved with stonewalling and cover-up like we are, and a bad policy that Fast and Furious was, you may need some prosecution, but the only way you're going to change behavior is a lot of people have to be fired, and we've trying to find out who's responsible for this and get them fired.
Well, listen, Senator, we appreciate the update, sir, and look forward to having you back on with new information very soon.
Thank you, Jenny and Cam. I'll be with you anytime you want me.